Have you guys ever played that game, One Word Story, where you and your friends each take turns saying a single word until eventually you form some kind of incoherent mess of a story? Well, this video is a little like that, but with comics. See, I've gathered 10 artists who I'm forcing to work together to make a comic. This comic will be 10 pages long, with each artist making a different page. The fun part is there will be no communication between the artists whatsoever. So there's absolutely no predicting what this comic is going to be about, or if it's going to even end up making any sense by the end. I guess we'll just have to see how it goes. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? With the first page of the comic. Oh, and would you look at that? It looks like I'm the first artist. What a surprise. Now, as the first artist in this collab, it was my job to make the first page of the comic. All the power is in my hands. I might not be able to stop this ship from sinking, but I can sure as hell try and steer it. So, it was my goal with this first page to establish some kind of direction for the comic, that the other artists could hopefully turn into a story. My main inspiration for this first page comes from those old Flash games like Henry Stickmin and such. When I was a kid, playing these games were so much fun. I just loved how unserious everything was, and the stupid cartoon logic made literally anything possible, so you'd never know what was about to happen next. And that's the kind of vibe I wanted for this comic. So here's the premise I came up with. This little alien is going to be our main character. Its name is Glorpus. Glorpus has been imprisoned for its many heinous crimes against humanity, and is now entering a highly secure prison to serve its sentence. I wanted this first page to immediately introduce our main character, Glorpus, as well as the unserious tone of the comic, and I think I successfully did that. As you can probably tell, I went for a very simplistic art style, also inspired from old Flash games of course, which definitely aligns itself nicely with the tone of the comic, as well as hopefully being a bit easier of a style for the other artists to replicate. Well, that's my page done. I can only imagine where the comic is going from here. Hopefully the next artist knows what they're doing.
I did not know what I was doing. Hi, I'm Fang, a self-proclaimed comic artist of 9 months. And I was second in making a page, which was one of the hardest places to be in besides being last, because I was tasked with the important job of fleshing out a plot for the others to go off of. In my head, an unsubstantial second page might just halt the story progression, especially when you're using a limited amount of pages. So I decided to make a couple changes. I first gave one of the characters a name called Private, imply that Glorpus had a darker side than it let on, and the silly gimmick of it yearning for arms, which started as just a throwaway line, but I ended up really liking it later on. I felt like it was pretty easy to mimic the art style Skynix gave us, and with the exception of this one panel, I don't know what I was cooking there. It's kind of gross looking. But regardless, for the last couple of panels, I really didn't know where to carry off on, so I decided that Private should have his own little mental breakdown moment, just for some spice. And there it is! Let's ship this page off to the next artist, and remember to keep making OCs and stay toothy! Bye-bye!
For my page, I had a couple of ideas. I decided to switch locations so we could advance the story a little bit. I wanted to have Private escorting Glorpus to its cell, that way he had a little time to think. Even after what the lieutenant said, he's still not quite convinced. I wanted to see if we would end up making Glorpus actually evil rather than just misunderstood, and I thought that the hint of it trying to escape still left it somewhat open. This way the next artist could decide what it would actually do. I laid out the panels in the sketch but couldn't decide on some placements. I liked the slanted panel for the composition, but I thought it might read weird. I decided to just flip the panel and I think that flowed much better. You can see I originally had them walking along a section of cells, but I thought that since this is seemingly a high security prison, they probably need to be sent to a more secure cell. I tried to replicate Skynix's wall design here as if it was a new area of the same building. This background is actually what took up a lot of the drawing time as I tried to make the perspective accurate and match the style. The style was actually pretty tricky to match despite the simplicity. I had to resize Private's head like 3 times and spent a lot of time matching line width. Skynix's page had very little shading, but Fang's had a bit more, so I matched Fang's shading since our pages would be next to each other. Once I added the dramatic lighting to the last panel, it's done! Let's see what the next artist does.
If there is a person here who is guilty of everything going haywire, it is me. Glad to be of service. But Skynix deserved it. He decided to become rich by making comics and taking over comic book industry, earning skazillions dollars on Glorpus. Why do you think Glorpus is many-colored? But why making anything himself if he, like an average deranged Sims 4 player, can use basement slaves to produce some work? I never even do line art. Why am I locked here? What a perfect place to sow darkness and despair. You think the story will be sunshine and rainbows? Well, my forecast shows blood. Because Glorpus bites hard. This cute little creature will dig your weak flesh until the wound is infected with Glorpus 19? Rabies? Action, action, action! Violence! Okay, I promise I'm not that deranged. I would never kill Private. See? He just sleeps. Creepy and violent is cool, but it would be boring without some light humor. Yes, it is Lieutenant who saved Private from the bite of 87 and locked this creature behind glass. But did he really save him? Yes, I promised that there will be blood, and it is here. But no matter what I say, I really hope that this story will have a happy ending. I care for Private. If anything worse happens to my dear sweet Private, I'll meet this artist behind the garage, infect their dreams, and scream under their bed at 5 AM. Happy ending, my guys. I'm waiting for the happy ending.
Wait, it's my turn already? That was fast. So I was given the task of making page 5, which is the halfway point. Usually around this time in a story, we begin to see the direction things are going in. But since this is an unusual comic, things are pretty unpredictable. I liked Kari's idea of our poor Private getting knocked out and infected by Glorpus. I decided to really lean into that by making the Glorpus cell go crazy and start attacking Private's blood cells while he lay unconscious on the floor. I think I could have made the first panel a bit more interesting though. I wanted to show Glorpus in the jar regaining their form after being splattered. But I also wanted to show the hammer guy realise what he did to his poor comrade. Of course, as you can see, that's exactly what I drew, but I just felt that in hindsight, the composition could have been a lot better. That being said, I did enjoy trying to keep the art style as consistent as possible with the other pages, and it was a lot of fun trying to draw in a different art style than what I was used to. Unfortunately, I did struggle with a good concept for the third panel. Originally I wanted to have Glorpus looking out of their jar prison at Private's body, but I just couldn't get the perspective and distance right. So instead, I decided to just have a close-up of Glorpus, complete with an ominous red eye. It gave the same feeling I wanted to have in my original idea, just executed a lot more simply. Anyway, that's my page done. I'm excited to see where this story goes next.
Now before we move on from that cliffhanger of a page, I think it's a time I tell you about this video's sponsor, UnVale. UnVale is a place where you can upload and keep track of all your original characters. It is completely anti-AI and anti-NFT, so you can guarantee it's a safe place for artists to share their work. UnVale allows you to upload your original characters to your own personal page, write about them, share them, and keep track of all the art you've made for them. UnVale also lets you explore other people's art and OCs. You can discover trending or recently added characters, worlds, writing, and art through their Explore tab. Just look at all these cool characters I found from just a couple minutes of exploring. Make sure to click the link in my description to check out UnVale today. Thank you to UnVale for sponsoring today's video, and without any further ado, let's get back to the collab.
What? Who turned off the lights? Here, let me just...
Good morning. I love the premise of this comic. Evil little creature unleashing the horrors. That's my kind of story right there. When I saw the page that Nulvo did before me, I knew exactly where I wanted to take this. It was set up perfectly. Just gotta continue whatever the next stage of this infection is. So of course, changing into another Glorpus felt fun. Honestly, that was the easiest part. The style matching was the hard part. I spent a while trying to get it just right, down to the same way of shading and the brush size. I think I did alright. You can still tell I'm the one that drew the page, but it matches well enough to where I'm content with it. I also really enjoyed the paneling I did. In the top one, I have the infected guard popping out and covering 3 different backgrounds. And then in the center one, I have the eye patch guard's head around the same spot his head would be in the bottom panel, which I thought was clever and helped my placement of speech bubbles too. Hammer in hand, he prepares to make one of the hardest decisions of his life. His friend or the world. His decision is whatever the next person decides. Should be fun.
For this comic collab, I was assigned page 7. Since there were only going to be about 10 pages, I knew the story would need to be wrapped up soon. The artists before me have already established the general plot of the story, and things are beginning to move pretty fast. The artist before me, Adrotic, established that a climactic battle was approaching, but I felt like something was still missing from this comic. When you watch anime or read manga, what is something that always happens in the middle of an epic fight scene? A flashback. Like I mentioned before, we already knew what was happening with our main characters in the present day, but we didn't know anything about what led up to those events. Luckily for me, Adrotic set this up perfectly with the line, "It's happening again." When I read this, I immediately thought, what do you mean again? I wanted to explore this by giving our hero a tragic backstory to explain his rigid personality. In the scene, we can see a younger version of the lieutenant losing his father to what appears to be another Glorpus. What could this mean? Is this the same creature as the present day? Who knows? Only time will tell.
Oh, it's my turn. Oh boy, oh boy. Oh, the curtains have opened. It's my turn to show off my wonderful comic. So, wonderful is a bit of a stretch. I'm normally someone that does pretty thin line art. And so, working with thick line art is, if you've ever seen how an ice pick lobotomy is, it sort of felt like that. It's like getting your hands removed and then stuck onto stumps. But we make do, alright? You know, you work with what you got, you use your resources. So, you can see here though, it was going into too happy of direction. Honestly, if you think about it, these chumps are all about positivity and love, and I couldn't stand for that. I can't stand seeing people happy. When I see couples outside, I throw rocks at them and point and laugh, but that's beside the point. The point is, I didn't like it. My heart was hurting. I forgot the rules of the comic thing. Oopsies. If you tell Skynix that I messed up, I will be very mad at you. I will be furious. Oh no, the curtain. No, please, Skynix. No,
Going into this, I was really, really scared. Being the second last meant that I would have a lot of pressure onto exactly how the finale would go. And oh boy, were people arguing and arguing for it to go either way, because I would push it one way or the other. Genuinely terrifying. I think they were gonna have it out for me no matter what I did. So to avoid that absolutely crushing anxiety, I went in this direction. I wanted to make it look like he was about to drop and swing when all of a sudden he missed, as if he couldn't do it. And that interpretation was to be left up to the next person. This whole thing and talk about viruses makes me anxious. Besides, the little guy looks a lot like me. I don't know how much I want him dead. I fear I should watch my back, maybe.
And wow, it's me, the final artist, Alpaca! Being the final artist was weirdly stressful. What do you mean I have to conclude this all? Let me give you guys some context. This is like my first ever time drawing a comic. I cannot tell you why I decided joining would be a good idea, but I'm genuinely so glad I did. I had so much fun trying this out, even though I was a bit stressed about having to crunch it all in a few hours. I wanted to do so much for this page, but I had to control myself with the time limit and my lack of experience. I think my biggest struggle was actually coming up with a conclusive ending that was ambiguous enough for the audience to decide what could have happened. So I decided I wanted to have the now infected private trying to jump out of the comic. My intention was to have it look like we, the reader, were next to be infected. Hence why Glorpus's crime is everything. I love drawing the panels to look like it was bending and breaking around private as they were trying to get out. Maybe if I remade this page, I would make it a bit more obvious. Besides the obvious anatomy mistakes, I'm actually really happy with how this came out. And with my part concluded, the comic is now finished. Great job, team!
And there you have it, a finished comic made by 10 different artists. And guys, I think we might have actually done a good job. So in order to present this comic to you in its full glory, me and some other artists from the collab have made an official dub for the comic. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
This little guy doesn't look so bad. What's it in for, anyway?
Everything. Crimes inconceivable by man, all hidden behind cutesy crocodile tears. Private, don't let it near your arms. It yearns for them.
It looks so sad, but Lieutenant said that's just a cover. I guess I shouldn't worry so much. It's under control.
Can't wait for a vacation to be away from idiots. Can't leave them alone for a goddamn minute. Private, get up! Partner, guess I don't know my own strength. He's out cold. Dear God, it's happening again. Daddy? Daddy! Don't make me do this! Please. I'm so sorry. I can't do it. What have you done?